A soldier reels back, his face a mask of fear. Another swings his blade in grim desperation. Their commander demands to know why the encirclement failed. But his men are lost in the chaos of the slaughter. A messenger struggles to deliver a frantic report. He reveals their entire force is being routed by one man. A single swordsman is tearing their army apart. And there he is, a whirlwind of steel and fury. He moves through them like a phantom of vengeance. His eyes are hollow, his rage absolute. The soldiers can only watch in utter horror. And we're pulled into the past, to a different time. To the first magic empire of Eustasia, an emperor decreed that those without magic were vermin. This law stripped the powerless of their human rights. They were enslaved, their freedom stolen from them, while the mages built their military might. The empire of Eustasia flourished on this injustice, and into this cruel world a boy was born. Branded an inferior, he was thrown into the coliseum, forced to fight for the twisted amusement of the crowds. Every day was a brutal struggle for survival. His only reward was a piece of moldy bread. His bed was nothing more than a pile of straw. Ah, the glamorous life of a professional gladiator. Each day he woke to the same cycle of agony. He collapsed, broken, time and time again. His only view of the world was through iron bars. But even in the darkness, there was a glimmer of hope. The arena master presented a statue of a legendary champion. An older gladiator weeps, realizing their only purpose is to die. The boy is frozen by this grim, hopeless reality, but a hand grabs him, pulling him from his despair. A fellow gladiator, Lloyd, offers a defiant smile. He promises they'll win 1,000 battles and escape together. And just like that, a fire is lit in the boy's soul. He found a friend, Lloyd, in the depths of this nightmare. Together they trained, honing their skills day and night. They became an unstoppable duo in the arena. Their teamwork was brutal and ruthlessly effective, leaving their opponents utterly broken. The crowds watched, captivated by their ferocity. Victory after victory, they climbed the ranks. The announcer calls out another win for the pair, until finally, the boy, Dino, achieves his 1,000th victory. But the crowd isn't cheering. They're disgusted. Tough audience. To them, he's just a prize to be won. He thought this was it, the moment of his release. But the owner's daughter appears, laughing at his hope. She tells him an inferior should know his place. The promise of freedom was a lie all along. Dino's world shatters in an instant. He had fought so hard for nothing. She reveals the truth. He's bound by invisible magic. A magic only the mages can see and control. He was never ever meant to be free. A shadowy serpent coils around his leg. She is a monster hiding in human skin, and she demands his absolute, unquestioning loyalty. In the end, there was only blood on the sand. Dino is left broken and chained to a wall. The owner's daughter reveals her twisted plans for him. She speaks of a cruel ritual for male slaves. She offers to perform the final humiliation herself. With no hope left, Dino can only submit. But a servant bursts in with urgent news. He carries an order from the 5th prince. The empire is going to war, and they need bodies. Well, this is a convenient career change. On the borders of the Sandaria kingdom, a battle rages. The Eustasian army is taking heavy losses. The battlefield is a vision of pure chaos. And so, the slaves are thrown into the meat grinder. Their purpose to die for their masters, they are forced to charge, a wave of human shields. Steel clashes against steel in a desperate fray. The slaves are cut down without mercy. Their lives are spent for mere inches of ground. From the hills, the mages prepare their spells. A soldier looks up, sensing a new kind of doom. A massive explosion rips through their own ranks. The mages rain fire down on friend and foe alike. A man collapses amidst the scorched earth. Another screams, his body torn apart by magic. Dino watches the slaughter, his eyes empty. He reaches for a fallen comrade, but the man's eyes are filled with a strange relief. He whispers that he can finally die. Dino realizes death is the only escape they have. If there's no hope, then peace is the only answer. And he raises his blade to his own throat. But before he can find his peace, the enemy finds him first. They see a broken slave, an easy kill for the taking. But in that moment, something inside Dino reignites. He knows it's hopeless, but he refuses to be discarded. This sword is the only proof that he ever lived. The soldiers recoil, suddenly realizing their fatal mistake. He will not let them dishonor his final defiant stand. As long as he has the strength to swing, he will fight. And with a final roar, he dives back into the fray. He becomes a storm of steel in the heart of the battle. Their numbers mean nothing against his despair-fueled rage. He carves a path through a mountain of his enemies. One by one, they fall before his relentless assault. His face is a mask of blood, his eyes hollow voids. The soldiers can't believe it. He's been fighting for over an hour. A commander arrives, annoyed his troops are being held up by one guy. He admits they can't handle this and calls for the mages. A sorcerer summons a monstrous beast of pure magic. The order is given, devour the slave. A creature of magic against a boy with none. Seems like a fair fight. The spectral beast lunges forward with a silent roar. It smashes into the ground, expecting an easy meal. But Dino is already gone, leaving only dust and broken earth. The commander can only stare in utter disbelief, because Dino is now standing right in front of the mage. And in a flash, the spellcaster is silenced for good. The cavalry watches, horrified, as their trump card is eliminated. But the battle has taken its toll. Dino's vision begins to fail. He can barely hear the screams of the terrified soldiers around him. And just then, more mages arrive, unleashing a volley of fireballs. He feels a familiar, piercing cold, a feeling he knew well in the coliseum. The sensation of facing death again and again. And again. This is the feeling of pure, unadulterated killing intent. But the soldiers can only scream in disbelief. Because somehow, this slave can see their magic. And he dodges every single blast. He's no longer just surviving, he's returning death. He whispers to himself that he will not lose. He forces his broken body to stand once more. As long as he can hold his sword, he will fight. The remaining soldiers can only see a monster, but a veteran officer sees something truly incredible. And a new figure arrives on the battlefield. A princess who refuses to lose any more of her men. Finally, some competent leadership. She casts her own sword aside, a gesture of peace. Her men plead with her, warning of the danger. But Dino is barely conscious, lost in a haze of pain. The world around him blurs into indistinct shapes. His body has finally reached its absolute limit. Through the fog, he sees someone walking toward him. A hand stops his blade, telling him it's over. He looks up into the eyes of the enemy princess. He can barely form a single question. Who? All he can see is the blurry outline of a woman. She tells him to look around, his army is gone. But his mind is still trapped in the fight. He doesn't even know why he's fighting anymore. And she realizes this monster has no malice left in him. His grip finally fails, the sword slipping from his fingers. His body gives out, collapsing onto the blood-soaked ground. She asks the name of the warrior who held off an army. She introduces herself as Princess Rafine of Sandaria, and in a gesture of respect, she offers him her hand. She honors his skill and bravery, a respect he's never known. To her army, he was the most terrifying and worthy opponent. His mind reels, his own people saw him as trash, but the enemy princess sees a hero. Talk about a plot twist. We learn this battle was the first clash between the two nations. A battle where Eustasia lost a prince and thousands of soldiers. It was a decisive victory, born from a brilliant strategy, an ambush that shattered their command and left only ruin. And the architect of this victory was the princess herself. Back in the present, Dino is put to work. He mulls over her name, still processing his new reality. He's no longer a soldier, but a prisoner of war. Great, another promotion. But something is different this time. He remembers her hand, offered not in contempt, but in respect. For the first time, he feels a flicker of something other than despair. But just as he reaches for it in his mind, a soldier violently shoves him to the ground. He screams at the slave not to dare touch their princess. He raises his blade, ready to deliver a final vengeful blow, but another soldier cries out, telling him to stop. The princess orders her man to stand down. She will not allow any more lives to be lost. He begrudgingly lowers his sword, obeying her command. She turns back to Dino, telling him they will speak later, and she sits, waiting for the right moment to talk. Dino's mind is a world away, replaying her words. But his new reality is an axe in his hand. He wonders when anyone last looked at him as a person. His reflection is shattered by a blow to the head. A masked prisoner tells him to stop daydreaming. Another, a Eustasian loyalist, scolds him for slacking off. Dino can only offer a quiet apology. His fellow prisoners aren't exactly his biggest fans. He and a younger boy are assigned a massive tree. One of the men explains how to fell such a beast. They believe it will take all three of them to finish, but Dino tells them he'll handle it himself. He plants his feet, the chain's a familiar weight. He raises the axe, his body a coiled spring, and with a single, impossible swing, he severs the trunk in one clean cut. The other prisoners can only stare, their minds broken. The forest giant comes crashing to the earth. Dino calmly announces there are 29 more to go. Just another Tuesday for our boy. The sound of his work echoes through the woods. Before they know it, he's cleared a small mountain of logs. The others call him a monster, unable to comprehend his power. He simply says he's decent with a blade. But one of the prisoners knows it's much more than that. A Sandarian officer, Johann, arrives on the scene. He notes that Dino's skill surpasses the mage's power. The Eustasian loyalist erupts, defending the mage's honor. Johann is unimpressed, telling the others to match Dino's pace. The loyalist can only grit his teeth in silent fury. With a smirk, Johann announces it's time for lunch. The prisoners are given a simple but hearty meal. The loyalist complains, unable to accept this new life. A woman offers Dino a refill on his soup. He savors the warmth, a stark contrast to the coliseum. But his quiet moment is interrupted by Johann. The officer wants to know the secret behind his impossible skill. Dino simply asks what he did to deserve the attention. He ignores the question, focusing on his meal. He explains he's a coliseum slave who killed to survive. Johann is stunned into silence by the brutal honesty. Just then, another officer arrives on the scene. This is Gilbert, the commander's aide, and he's not impressed. Dino recognizes him from the battlefield. Another ghost from his past. Gilbert announces he has a special job for the swordsman. A crowd begins to form, sensing something is about to happen. The guards wonder what all the commotion is about. The news spreads. Gilbert is challenging the rumored slave. He introduces himself as a member of a famed sword clan. The crowd buzzes with excitement, placing their bets. A guard notes Gilbert is a powerful mage fighting a simple swordsman, but Gilbert promises this will be a duel of blades only. A servant brings forward a familiar cloth-wrapped bundle. Dino prepares himself for what's to come. His old swords are returned to him. He accepts the challenge without a word. Johann protests, calling this treatment of a prisoner unfair. Gilbert smirks, saying there's a prize on the line. He makes a wager for all the prisoners to hear. If Dino wins, he'll buy drinks for everyone. Suddenly, Dino has a whole new cheering section. Priorities, right? Gilbert taunts him, saying he's free to run away if he's scared. But Dino's expression remains completely unreadable. Johann tries to intervene, telling Dino he doesn't have to fight, but his hand tightens around the familiar grip of his sword. He stands, accepting the challenge with quiet confidence. Gilbert draws his own blade, ready to begin the duel. With a sudden cry, the fight is on. Gilbert explodes forward, a blur of motion and steel. Dino raises his twin blades just in time to parry the strike. The two warriors become a whirlwind of clashing swords. The onlookers can barely follow the blinding speed of their exchange. Even Johann is stunned by the ferocity of the duel. Gilbert presses his attack, forcing Dino onto the defensive. A thin line of blood appears on Dino's cheek. Gilbert grows frustrated, calling him a coward for only dodging. His rage is fueled by jealousy over the princess's respect for Dino. He declares he'll prove his sword is the only one worthy of her. Someone's got a bit of an ego. But Dino remains eerily calm, simply observing his opponent. The veteran officer realizes Dino isn't just defending, he's waiting. Gilbert lunges forward, aiming for a decisive blow, but Dino deflects the blade and throws one of his own. Gilbert smirks, having anticipated the move. He mocks the tactic, believing an unarmed hand is no threat. He closes the distance, ready to finish the fight. But his eyes widen in shock. There was a second thrown blade. The hidden dagger strikes his hand, forcing him to drop his sword. Dino leaps into the air, catching his falling sword. The aide can only watch in horror, completely outplayed. And with a single powerful blow, Dino ends the duel. The dagger falls to the ground, its purpose served. But there's something strange coating Dino's blade. The veteran officer realizes Gilbert cheated using magic on his sword. The aide knows he's been caught, his honor in tatters. And Dino explodes with a terrifying new power. A dark energy seems to pour from his very being. Gilbert can only stare, his arrogance replaced by pure fear. Dino's eyes are cold, not even blinking at the threat. He overpowers the aide, ready to end the duel, and slams him brutally into the ground. Guess the fight is over. Gilbert can only cry out, completely helpless. But Dino isn't finished with his performance just yet. The sword he threw earlier is now falling back down, a final deadly punctuation mark to the fight. He catches it effortlessly, a master of his craft. Gilbert is left panting in the dirt, utterly defeated. Dino stands over him, declaring that it's finished. His blade rests at the aide's throat, a final silent warning. A young woman from the crowd holds Gilbert's fallen sword. Dino explains his sword only knows how to kill. The crowd is stunned, the famed swordsman lost to a slave. Gilbert's pride is shattered into a million pieces. He demands to know why Dino won't finish him off. Dino simply points to the cut on his own cheek. He explains that if a wound isn't fatal, he won't kill for it. How very practical. Gilbert is horrified by this cold, brutal logic. Dino says fighting is all he has and he will not lose. The prisoners raise their mugs, toasting their new champion. A promise is a promise, and the drinks are flowing. For the first time, there's a sense of celebration. Well, for most of them anyway, the loyalist is having a bad day. For the first time, Dino is surrounded by cheers, not jeers. But when the night falls, the camp grows silent. And Dino is once again alone with his thoughts. He reflects that this is the first time he's been praised for his skill. In his old life, the only sound was the cry for death. The Coliseum never offered thanks, only demanded blood. His memories are a gallery of brutal, desperate fights, a world of pain, fear, and survival, where every victory was just a prelude to the next, and the sand was always stained with the blood of the fallen. His sword was an instrument of slaughter. The only applause was the roar of a bloodthirsty crowd. Every day was a new opponent, a new life to take. A cycle of violence that shaped his entire existence. He was a boy forced to become a killer. His blade, he realizes, was nothing more than a tool. His hands are a map of 1,000 battles fought. He touches the new scar, a mark of his new life, and wonders if he even has the right to feel happy. The next morning begins with a bucket of cold water. He emerges, the shock barely registering on his face. And just like that, he's the talk of the town. A group of women admire the mysterious, battle-scarred warrior. Dino, however, is completely baffled by the attention. News of his victory over the commander's aide has spread like wildfire. They whisper about how he even beat a mage who cheated. He offers a small, almost shy smile in their direction. And the fan club officially loses its collective mind. Our boy is clearly more comfortable fighting armies than receiving compliments. Johann appears, noting that even the soldiers now want to train with him. He even spars with the Sandarian soldiers, who are eager to learn from him. He reflects on this strange new feeling taking root in his heart. His enemies acknowledge him more than his own people ever did. He's given warm meals, a simple luxury he's never known. He's surrounded by kind words and camaraderie. Since becoming a prisoner, he feels like he's living in a dream. For the first time in his life, he is truly happy. But of course, someone has to come and ruin the moment. Gilbert grabs him, his face a mask of pure contempt. The defeated aide is clearly still holding a massive grudge. Dino notes the pure, unadulterated disgust in his eyes. Just then, a messenger arrives with a summons from the princess. He's escorted to the command headquarters on the hill. The door bursts open and the princess welcomes him warmly. Dino and Gilbert are both stunned by her cheerful entrance. She's carrying a mountain of paperwork. Talk about a warrior princess. She explains that the end of a war is often busier than the war itself. She's processing the list of the fallen to ensure their families are compensated. Gilbert offers to take over the grim task for her, but she refuses, saying that even with low casualties, her soldiers still died. She must write each name herself, to never see them as mere numbers. Dino bows his head, offering a quiet, somber apology. The princess looks up, confused by his words. He explains that some of those names belong to men he killed, but she tells him he's wrong. The blame lies with the leaders, not the soldiers. He simply fulfilled his duty on the battlefield, and he shouldn't feel guilt. In fact, she says, she holds his abilities in the highest regard, and she reaches out, taking his hand in hers. She offers him a position as her direct subordinate, a full-on job offer. Dino's mind completely short-circuits. He's not equipped for this. The princess explains her kingdom is outmatched by Eustasia's might. Dino is stunned. In his country, a non-mage can't even be an officer, but she sees his skill as something far more valuable than magic. She promises to reward his power, asking him to serve her directly. Dino can only stare at the hand offered to him. An enemy princess wants him, a slave by her side. The offer is reflected in his eyes, too real to believe. She doesn't care for rank. She sees the value in his worthless sword, a bitter memory of another woman's promise, one of eternal slavery. He remembers a life spent looking through iron bars. This hand offers an escape from the hell he's always known, but he's still crushed by the weight of 1,000 ghosts, and so he bows his head, unable to accept. The princess is taken aback, clearly not used to having her job offers rejected. The word inferior is still branded onto his soul. She knows of his past, of the Coliseum and the persecution. She sees a contradiction. A man who fears reward but honors his blade. She asks him why he clings to his sword with such conflict, and Dino finally confesses a truth buried deep within him. He tells them he killed his best friend. He speaks of a boy named Lloyd, his brother in the arena. They had a dream of winning 1,000 battles to be free together. But that dream ended in blood and tragedy. He held his friend's lifeless body in his arms. The crowd roared while his world fell silent. For their final battle, they were pitted against each other. In the arena, only one swordsman could walk away. To survive, he had to strike down his only friend. He calls himself a monster who killed for a meaningless number. Gilbert listens, his own grudge suddenly seeming so small. The princess listens, her expression softening with understanding. But she quickly dismisses his guilt, telling him to accept her offer anyway. Dino is completely floored by her bluntness, and Gilbert looks like he's just seen a ghost. He accuses her of being insensitive, but she doesn't see the problem. She argues that she never even met this Lloyd. Talk about a lack of bedside manner. Dino can only stare, lost in a sea of confusion. Gilbert is still trying to process what's happening, and a fluffy tail appears out of nowhere. Okay then, the princess calmly sips her drink, a complete change of pace. She tells him that only he can find the answers he seeks. He must take the time to heal before he can truly move on. She stumbles over her words, realizing she's not the best motivational speaker. But she clenches her fist, determined to make one final point. She gently brushes the hair from his eyes and tells him that no monster would ever feel such guilt. She says that he is to a painful degree human, and with those words, the dam finally breaks. He was a slave, a thing to be used and discarded, but this woman saw past the blood and the scars. He never knew such kindness could exist in the world. She is a light reaching down into the hell he's always known, and in that moment, he decides he will become her sword. He can only offer a broken apology for his outburst. The princess simply smiles, her understanding absolute. Dino struggles to find his voice, his resolve hardening. He looks up, ready to give her his answer. Sometime later, a supply wagon rumbles down the road. It's loaded with food, medicine, and the princess's favorite coffee. And a cheerful young girl arrives asking for her brother, Gilbert. The girl is Gilbert's sister, traveling with an older attendant. The man looks around, a sense of unease on his face. But inside the camp, a guard demands to know what's happening. A soldier recognizes Gilbert's sister, calling her by name. She looks on, confused by the sudden commotion. She realizes with a start that the prisoners have all collapsed. The entire yard is littered with unconscious bodies. A shadowy serpent of magic coils in the air, unseen by most. But Dino's eyes can perceive the invisible threat. He suddenly collapses, blood streaming from his eyes. The dark magic is attacking him from within. The princess is stunned by this sudden, violent turn. A soldier bursts into the room with an urgent report. He confirms that the prisoners are falling one by one. The princess and her retinue rush to the scene. Dino's vision is filled with the swirling, cursed energy. They arrive to find a makeshift infirmary overflowing with bodies. Gilbert's sister looks on, identifying the cause as a curse. A woman introduces herself as Iris, a special sanitation officer. She explains that all non-mage Eustasians are bound by this magic. The princess is horrified by such a cruel and cowardly tactic. The Eustasian loyalist confirms the curse is designed to kill them. He cackles that their humane treatment was a mistake. Talk about a company man. Dino and Gilbert's sister can only listen in horror. The princess's hand clenches into a fist of pure rage. She grabs the loyalist, furious at his twisted logic. He can only beg for his life, terrified of her wrath. Gilbert reminds her the man is a valuable bargaining chip. She grits her teeth, knowing he's right. The loyalist collapses, ceding authority to Officer Iris. The princess gives the order, use every available resource to save them. Iris unleashes a powerful healing spell called Goddess's Affection. But the curse continues its brutal work on their bodies. The healing magic struggles against the relentless dark energy. The medics report a small victory. The bleeding has finally stopped. But Iris explains her magic only treats the body, not the mind. For a non-mage, the chances of surviving this mental assault are slim. But the princess refuses to give up on a single one of them. Dino lies broken, apologizing for being unable to stop the slaughter. He finds himself in a dark void, a prison of the mind. A voice echoes through the darkness filled with pure hatred. The ghosts of the men he killed in the arena rise to meet him. He recognizes them instantly. His victims from the coliseum. They claw at him, accusing him of finding happiness on their graves. Their only desire is to drag him down into death with them. And in this moment, he believes he deserves their hatred. Well, this is a fun trip down memory lane. He accepts their judgment, believing he has no right to be forgiven. But even as he sinks into despair, he remembers the princess's hand, a symbol of respect. He remembers her kindness, a light in his endless night. He remembers her words telling him he was painfully human. And that memory gives him the strength to fight back. He will live, not for forgiveness, but to serve the one who saw him as a man. He declares that he cannot stay in this place of death. Back in the real world, the medics are losing the battle. The yard is becoming a graveyard, one body at a time. The veteran officer can only watch, knowing it's a hopeless fight. He sees that only a handful of prisoners are still breathing. But then, Dino's body convulses, expelling the curse. Iris looks on in disbelief, calling out his name. The medics rush to Dino's side, but his body is a wreck. Iris realizes with horror that the bleeding won't stop. His life is fading, held only by sheer, impossible willpower. But they can't give him a transfusion without knowing his blood type. A medic bursts in with the results, a rare type they've never seen. They have no matching blood. A transfusion is impossible. But Gilbert suddenly draws a blade and cuts his own arm. He offers his own blood, a shocking act of sacrifice. Well, look who's playing the hero now. The princess can only stare, stunned by her aide's actions. He says it's just a debt being repaid for their duel. He screams at Iris, telling her to hurry. She snaps to attention, ordering the procedure to begin. As his blood flows, a spectral goddess seems to watch over him. Iris channels her own magic, praying for a miracle. The princess holds Dino's hand, refusing to let him go. In the darkness, Dino sees the ghosts of the fallen prisoners. They reach for him, not with malice, but with fear. The curse is tearing their souls apart even in death. Dino realizes he has to fight his way out of this nightmare. His eyes snap open, filled with a new burning resolve. A single thought echoes in the void. Unforgivable. And the ghost of his friend, Lloyd, appears before him. He accuses Dino of finding happiness while leaving him to rot. He raises his sword, demanding Dino join him in the abyss. Dino looks at him, a quiet understanding dawning on his face. The roar of the crowd echoes in his memory. He's back in the coliseum, surrounded by calls for death. The owner's daughter demands he deliver the final blow. He stands over his friend, his sword raised for the kill, and tears stream down his face as he's forced to end it all. Lloyd tells him they both knew this day would come. But Dino weeps, remembering Lloyd was his only friend. His friend smiles through the blood, calling Dino kind, but Dino knows he must take his friend's life to survive. Lloyd tells him to go on, to find freedom for them both. And in his mind, he begs his friend to take him with him. The memory flashes, a blinding white light. Talk about a traumatic highlight reel. And the two friends are forced to clash in the arena. The ghost of Lloyd dissolves, saying Dino knew him best. But Dino refuses to believe it. His friend would never say that. He screams that this thing before him is an imposter. The spirit smirks, admitting he finally figured it out. It reveals its true form, a master of these tormented souls. But the real Lloyd appears, ready to help his brother. Now that's what I call a brost ex machina. He carves a path through the spirits of the damned. He stands ready to fight by Dino's side once more. The ghouls of the curse surge forward in a wave of despair. They merge into a single monstrous entity of bone and regret. But Lloyd stands before it, completely unafraid. The beast roars, its face a mosaic of skulls. Lloyd turns to Dino, telling him it's time to go together. The two friends stand back to back one last time, ready to show this world their true strength. With a final unified battle cry, they shatter the monster of regret into nothing. Dino stands tall, ready to defy the world that broke him. Back in reality, a single tear escapes his eye. His vision is a blur of light and concerned faces. He can only whisper the name of the princess, and she's there, holding his hand, calling his name with joy. Iris announces that his vitals are stable and the curse is gone. The princess is overwhelmed with relief, whispering that he's finally back. Dino can only gasp for air, utterly spent but alive. They try to get him to rest, but he's already fighting to move. He pushes himself up, his eyes fixed on the princess. He reaches for her, needing to tell her what's in his heart. With a trembling hand, he asks to become her sword. His gaze is unwavering, his decision absolute. He remembers a life defined by loss and endless battle. And for the kindness she showed him, he offers a simple thank you. She tells him that choosing him is her pride, a choice he'll never regret. Tears of joy stream down her face. A princess and her sworn slave. And so, the legend of a new hero begins. But back in Eustasia, the night holds a different kind of story. A familiar woman plummets from a balcony screaming in agony. Her attendant can only watch in horror, unable to stop it. The owner's daughter has been brutally struck down. Looks like karma finally clocked in for her shift. She collapses, wondering if this is her end. But her hand clenches, refusing to die without vengeance. And with her last breath, she screams Dino's name in pure hatred. A month later, a truce is called between the two nations. Princess Rafine leaves the front lines, heading for the capital. And Dino, her new sword, travels with her. They arrive in the royal capital of Sandaria, Florence. Dino walks through the bustling streets, a world away from the battlefield. He's brought to a fine establishment in the city. An older tailor greets them with a knowing look. A flamboyant designer seems to size him up instantly. Iris smiles, ready for the next phase of his new life. And Dino emerges, transformed into a gentleman. Our boy cleans up nicely. The princess admires her new knight and his various outfits. She asks him to strike a pose with a ceremonial sword. She explains that he can't wear his old slave rags anymore. Her tail wags with a sudden, brilliant idea. She declares that he's going on a date with her. Dino can only process this with a blank, terrified stare. He panics, asking why a princess would ever go out with him. She closes her eyes, saying the reason is quite simple, and with a grin she yells that it's because she wants to have fun. She lists her endless duties, realizing today is her only day off. And since he is her sword, he has no choice but to come along. Dino can only agree, as it is his lady's command. The princess orders all the clothes delivered, plus her usual disguise. She dons a fake mustache with a mischievous grin. They walk through the city, Dino questioning her choice of attire. She boasts that she's so popular, she can't go out without a disguise. And she reveals her full incognito look. Truly, a master of stealth. She explains that as Baron Mustache, she's never been recognized. Dino is not convinced as the entire street is whispering her name. She leads him through the market, promising him a good meal. A plate of the local specialty, seafood pasta, is served. Dino recoils in horror, seeing only blood, flesh, and a giant bug. They sit at a seaside cafe, a world away from the battlefield. He stares at the fork, an object he's never seen before. He holds it up, asking if this tiny trident is a weapon. The princess can't help but laugh at his brutal innocence. She patiently demonstrates how the strange tool is used. Dino watches intently, trying to commit the move to memory. He grips the fork like a dagger, ready for culinary combat, and proceeds to attack his food with deadly seriousness. He takes a hesitant bite, unsure what to expect. The princess watches him closely, waiting for his reaction, and his world is rocked by an explosion of flavor. He then eyes another strange item, a fruit from the sea. He carefully extracts the meat with a tiny spoon, and discovers a taste that rivals the first. He tells her this is better than any meal he's ever had. Even prison food was a step up, so this is just unfair. The princess smiles, holding up a small bottle. She offers to add a little something extra. He takes another bite, trusting her completely. They share a moment of simple culinary joy, until his mouth suddenly erupts in fire. She laughs as he panics, thinking it's poison. She explains it's just a spicy vinegar from the south. Dino eyes the bottle with newfound suspicion. He cautiously tries another bite, and a new, complex flavor unfolds on his tongue. The two share a smile, enjoying their meal together. She tells him about the city's vibrant trade and culture. Dino listens, absorbing this new, peaceful world. After their meal, they walk through the bustling streets. The princess is clearly in her element. Dino watches a street performer with childlike wonder. She leads him through the lively market square. He sees families enjoying the day together. A snake charmer captures his attention, a bit different from the coliseum's entertainment. The crowd cheers for the various performers. The princess playfully puts a pair of cat ears on him. A strong man shows off his incredible power, and the princess looks at him with a genuine, warm smile. She points, ready to drag him on the next leg of their adventure. He even finds himself in an arm wrestling match with a local giant. The sound of music fills the air, a melody of peace. The princess pulls a bewildered Dino into a street dance, and for the first time, he's surrounded by smiles, not jeers. She watches him, happy to see him experience a world without pain. As the day ends, they stand together, watching the sun set over the sea. She tells him this is her favorite place in the entire city. Dino can only whisper that it looks like the ocean is on fire. He remembers how he used to long for the night to come, because only in darkness was he free from his suffering. But for the first time, he wishes the day would never end. The princess explains she wanted him to see the nation he'd be protecting. She asks him what he truly thought of his time in her city. Dino is quiet, searching for the right words. A new understanding dawns in his eyes. He explains that in Eustasia, laughter was a sound of cruelty, but here it's warm and people live without chains. He remembers a child trying to thank the princess for her work, but her mother gently reminded her to respect the baron's privacy. He finally smiles, realizing this is a truly kind country. He reaffirms his vow, honored to use his blade to protect this place. The princess listens, her expression soft and understanding. A bell tolls, signaling the end of their day. A carriage arrives to take them back to their duties. She informs him he'll be joining her newly formed personal unit. His first mission, to serve as her guard at the peace conference. Dino accepts, ready to prove himself a sword worthy of her trust. But as he turns to leave, she calls out his name, and reminds him that while he is her sword, he is also a man. She tells him that until now, his life has only been about killing. But here, he will learn to live, to eat, and maybe even to love. She hopes that one day this country will become something he truly wants to protect. And with that, she officially welcomes him to his new home, Sandaria. Her smile is a promise of a future he never dared to imagine. Elsewhere, Iris discusses Dino's impossible victory over the curse. She notes that he was always watching the princess, even from afar. His sword has already learned how to cut down the magic of his enemies. She turns to her companion, asking if he agrees. A majestic griffin named Sieg lands on her arm. A magical Uber. Nice. But back in Eustasia, the mood is far from peaceful. A noble rages that the fifth prince's incompetence cost them the war. His advisors debate their next move, their situation growing more dire. One suggests using the truce to regroup their shattered forces, but another erupts, knowing 30 days is not nearly enough time. They are trapped between the shame of defeat and the wrath of their emperor. The noble declares that they will oppose the prince's foolish plans. His men realize this betrayal will mean the prince's certain ruin. And on the rooftops of the empire, statues stand as silent witnesses. The owner's daughter lies in a ruined room, lost in a hazy memory. Her mind drifts back to a different time and a different boy, to a memory of a child being tormented by others. He cries out in pain, huddled alone in the dirt, until a young girl finds him, calling him weak for being beaten. She dismisses his questions, offering him medicine instead. She tends to his wounds, telling him to hold still. In another memory, she tells a boy to be strong and endure the pain. And as she wipes away his tears, she notices something. She realizes that beneath the dirt and blood, he has a handsome face. In the present, she lies in her bed and whispers a single name, Dino. A messenger from the fifth prince arrives in the ruined room. This is Israha, a guard sent to deliver a rather pointed message. She explains that the Carnelian family must pay for the prince's failure. The owner's daughter is given an ultimatum: succeed or face the emperor's wrath. Israha makes it clear she's here to enforce that threat one way or another. A strange magical familiar rests on the bed, a silent, slimy observer. But the owner's daughter has lost all will, whispering that she no longer cares. Israha can only watch, her expression completely unreadable. Meanwhile, the two nations prepare for their first peace conference. Princess Rafine prepares for the crucial meeting ahead, and Dino stands guard, now serving alongside Gilbert. The two former rivals are now comrades in arms, awkward. Gilbert remains stoic, still processing their new dynamic. Dino offers a sincere thank you for the life-saving transfusion. Gilbert dismisses it, clearly uncomfortable with the gratitude. Dino simply tells him to focus on the mission. Look how the tables have turned. Inside, the princess dreams, calling out Dino's name. She's having a rather vivid dream about Gilbert's happy face. A dream that the real Gilbert would probably not appreciate. Outside, Dino stands watch, unaware of the chaos in her subconscious. Later, he discusses the upcoming treaty with the princess. He asks if she truly intends to accept the peace terms. She admits that if the choice were hers alone, she would refuse. But the fifth prince was desperate, and she was chosen to see it through. Gilbert listens, a quiet, knowing smile on his face. Dino questions the king's judgment, seeing it as a weakness. But the princess appears, telling him he is mistaken. She explains her father has the courage to trust his enemies, and that judging others by cold logic is the true act of a coward. Her words strike Dino, challenging his entire worldview. We're pulled back 6 years to a lesson that would define a princess. Her father warned her that absolute power is a poison for rulers. He taught her to build a nation so loved, its people would protect it themselves. She admits she lacks her father's courage to trust so blindly, but she will make his ideals a reality, pushing these talks to the very edge. And with that heavy thought, she declares, it's time for a good night's sleep. Priorities. Dino is left confused, wondering why she would ever call herself a coward. Gilbert tells him not to take her self-deprecation so seriously. He asks if a true coward would ever stand before Dino without a weapon. The words hit our boy, a new perspective dawning on him. He sees the princess in her full armor, a vision of regal strength. Gilbert explains that belittling herself is one of her few bad habits. But her followers know her true nobility, and that is all that matters. Dino finally smiles, seeing the unwavering loyalty in Gilbert's heart. He remarks that Gilbert is a good person after all. A flustered Gilbert grabs him as the princess tells them to stop playing around. The next day, they arrive at the site of the first peace conference. They stand before a landscape of utter devastation. This was once a border checkpoint, now just a ruin from the invasion. A single table is set in the rubble, the stage for their negotiations. Dino and Gilbert are reminded that they are her only shield here. The princess looks up, sensing the arrival of the other party. 3 figures emerge from the ruins, the Eustasian representatives. Dino's eyes widen in complete and utter shock, because leading them is Elizabeth Carnelian, the owner's daughter. Well, this is going to be awkward. Her cold gaze sweeps across the Sandarian party, until her eyes lock onto a familiar face, and her composure shatters. She can't believe it. The slave she thought was dead is standing right there. Dino can only whisper her name. A ghost from his past returned. She rushes forward, screaming that she knew he was alive. She demands to know where he's been, her voice cracking with rage. She points, declaring he is her slave and must return to her side. But Princess Rafine steps between them, her sword drawn. She orders the Eustasian representative to halt her advance. To cross this line is to declare war all over again. Elizabeth freezes, her fury clashing with the princess's authority. The princess sees the history in their eyes, but declares Dino is no longer a slave. She announces he is now a citizen of Sandaria, and Elizabeth has no claim. Now that's how you handle an ex. Dino stands his ground, vowing to never take a step back into that hell. The princess calmly tells Elizabeth to return to her seat. The owner's daughter can only grit her teeth in silent, impotent rage. But Rafine's gaze is a wall of unyielding steel. Elizabeth's eyes burn with a hatred that could curdle milk. Her advisor panics, reminding her their family's fate is on the line. She hesitates, the weight of her mission finally sinking in, and with a final glare, she returns to the negotiating table. Dino trembles, the ghosts of his past still clinging to him. The princess glances back, her expression softening with concern. With the pleasantries out of the way, the peace talks can finally begin. She reviews their offer of a 10-year payment plan and promptly rejects it. The Eustasian noble is stunned, demanding to know why. She gestures to the ruins, stating the price doesn't cover the damages. And a 10-year plan offers too many chances for betrayal. He sputters, asking how she can't trust the empire that just invaded them. A truly baffling question. Her eyes narrow. She tells him they must first show their sincerity. She makes her counteroffer, 500 million, paid in one lump sum. The noble looks like he's about to have a heart attack. The princess smiles, saying such a payment would prove it was all a misunderstanding. He begins to weep, completely broken by her ruthless negotiation. But she knows the truth. This family was sent here to fail. She knows they're desperate, and she's going to push them to the brink. The noble panics, but Elizabeth agrees to the impossible sum. Her advisor can't believe what he's hearing. She announces her family will cover the entire reparation fee, but she has one condition. Dino must be returned to her. Dino is frozen, the past reaching out to claim him once more. Her own advisor tries to stop her, reminding her of her duty. But she dismisses him with a cold, condescending smile, and a monstrous familiar emerges from her shadow. The noble can only whisper the creature's name in terror. It's a grotesque fusion of flesh and dark magic. Its single eye stares out, devoid of any soul. She shoves her guardian aside, his body now rigid as stone. Gilbert realizes with horror that the man has been petrified. Dino can only watch, knowing exactly what she's capable of. She declares she'll sell everything she owns to pay the debt, because the only thing she truly wants is him. Well, this is getting uncomfortable. She clutches her head, lost in a twisted memory of her love. She demands he acknowledge her pain and return to her side, but his mind is filled with visions of her endless cruelty. He trembles, refusing to return to that living hell. But he grits his teeth, willing to sacrifice himself for the princess. But the princess calmly reminds Elizabeth that Dino is a free man, and she slams her hand down, calling the offer an insult. She declares that her nation will not be so easily disrespected. With that, she ends the conference, ordering her men to withdraw. She turns to Dino, her voice filled with concern. She takes his hand, feeling the cold terror that still grips him. She apologizes, wishing she hadn't brought him into this mess. But she promises that she will never let him go back to that life. Dino is stunned, a single tear tracing a path down his cheek. He grits his teeth, overwhelmed by a kindness he never knew. But Elizabeth erupts in a jealous rage, her familiar lashing out. A volley of dark-bladed feathers shoots toward the princess. Dino reacts instantly, shoving his new master out of harm's way. He looks down, confused, as he holds her in his arms. But Gilbert is already there, his own blades blocking the attack. The magical projectiles shatter against his expert defense. He warns them that insulting his princess is a fatal mistake. Elizabeth's blonde guardian leaps forward to join the fight, and Israha, the braided warrior, unleashes her own assault. The battlefield erupts in a flash of clashing magic and steel. Gilbert finds himself locked in a duel with the blonde swordsman, while Israha battles a shadowy beast with her own familiar. The blonde man summons his guardian spirit, the seraphim. Fancy, Israha counters with her own guardian, the serpent Naga. A blinding light signals the escalation of the fight. The three guardians become a whirlwind of chaotic power. The princess watches, impressed by their formidable skill. Elizabeth smirks, confident her guards will handle the situation. The princess offers to be Dino's eyes, to guide him against the magic. But Dino tells her to get to safety, his voice firm. She can only stare, surprised by his sudden command. He clutches the broken chains, a symbol of his past life. He remembers her hand, the first time he was ever given a choice. He covers his face, vowing to never be weak again. A flash of light cuts through the chaos. Dino stands tall, ready to sever the chains of his past himself. He plants his sword, declaring that he is no longer a slave. And with a defiant roar, he vows he will never return to her. Elizabeth's face twists in a mask of pure, unadulterated rage. She unleashes her magic, a screaming specter of Medusa's wrath. A tide of spectral snakes erupts as she vows to remind him of his place. But Dino's eyes are a sea of impossible calm. Elizabeth presses her attack, certain of her victory, and Dino simply closes his eyes, waiting. She falters, confused by his apparent surrender. But he's not surrendering. He's remembering the feeling of death. He can't see magic, but he can feel the cold chill of killing intent. His senses, honed in the crucible of the arena, give shape to the unseen. His eyes snap open, his resolve absolute. He didn't survive this long by being weak, and in a flash of steel, every single serpent is cut to ribbons. He sees the reflection of her true power in his eye. He finally understands the shape of the monster before him, and he stands ready to cut down this new beast. Elizabeth can't comprehend it. A boy with no magic can see her spells. Her familiar, a massive serpent, coils around her protectively. She attacks with the grotesque creature that petrified her own man. The blonde guardian screams that it's the same monster that took down her father. Family drama is the worst. Dino knows he can't block the incoming blast with his sword alone, so he rips a massive slab of stone from the ground and uses the rubble itself as a makeshift shield. The stone shatters, but Dino is unharmed. Elizabeth frantically searches for him in the dust and debris. He's vanished into the ruins, using the battlefield to his advantage. He moves through the wreckage like a phantom. She realizes he's using the blind spots to close the distance. The princess watches, realizing his intuition is beyond human. She understands that when it comes to the art of killing, Dino is a true prodigy. Elizabeth panics, realizing her monster is being hunted. She screams, pointing upwards in a desperate panic. Her grotesque familiar senses the danger far too late, because Dino is already in the air, a phantom of vengeance from above. She can only stare, realizing her fatal miscalculation. He brings his blade down in a single decisive strike. Elizabeth cries out, not in fear, but in sudden, searing pain. Dino unleashes a roar, putting all his strength into the blow, and his sword carves through the magical beast like it's made of paper. He lands gracefully, his deadly work complete. The monster dissolves, its power completely severed. Dino feels the feedback, knowing the blow was true. But it's Elizabeth who screams, dark energy erupting from her body. Looks like they had a codependent relationship. Dino realizes with a shock that his attack on the familiar wounded its master. The princess screams his name, warning him of a new threat. Izraha lunges forward, her own guardian spirit ready to strike. But Dino is ready, his blades meeting hers in a shower of sparks. Suddenly, he's surrounded, fighting off all three of her guards at once. Izraha screams at her master to get treatment before she bleeds out. She calls in her own reinforcements, turning this duel into a skirmish. Gilbert responds in kind, ordering his men to protect the princess. The two armies face off, ready to reignite the war right here and now. But the princess's voice cuts through the chaos, demanding they stop. The soldiers freeze, caught between their rage and her command. She orders her men to stand down, to sheathe their swords. She declares the talks are over. There's no reason for more bloodshed. She tells Izraha that if she withdraws now, her master can still be saved. She offers a choice, save a life or start a war for a head. Izraha is forced to weigh her duty against her desire for vengeance. Dino watches, his expression completely unreadable. Izraha concedes, admitting her mission was never to kill the princess. She orders a full retreat, her first priority now saving her master. Elizabeth is carried away, unconscious and bleeding. Dino can only watch, his expression unreadable. And just like that, the first peace conference ends in failure. Gilbert apologizes for the chaos, but the princess understands. Dino is still lost in the aftermath of the battle. He touches the braid in his hair, a relic of a complicated past. The princess asks if he's all right, her voice laced with concern. She explains that the monsters they fought are guardian spirits. They are the physical manifestation of a mage's deepest emotions, so basically, they're magical, murderous mood rings. Dino realizes that to hurt the spirit is to hurt the master. The princess asks if he acted out of hatred for Elizabeth, but his mind drifts back to a different time, to a memory of a young girl with a sudden kind idea. She had found him broken and beaten in the dirt, and with gentle hands she began to braid his hair, a small, simple gesture he never forgot. She had smiled, telling him how handsome he looked. She had touched his face, wiping away the grime and blood, and told him a pretty face shouldn't go to waste. For the first time, he had thanked her without fear. He admits to the princess that she wasn't always a monster. The princess listens, a new understanding dawning in her eyes. Iris arrives, arguing that Elizabeth is also a victim of her cruel nation, but the princess simply thanks Dino for protecting her. He looks at her, the title of her sword finally sinking in. With the talks failed, she declares they must prepare for what's next. Dino looks up, sensing a new presence in the air. The princess says that now he should be able to see her guardian, and she introduces him to Sieg, her majestic griffin. A much classier ride than a horse. The princess gives Dino a message to deliver to her father. Sieg takes off with a powerful gust, shattering the ground below. The majestic griffin soars through the sky at impossible speeds. Dino can only stare, stunned by the creature's raw velocity. Rafine explains that every guardian spirit is unique in its power. Some, like Gilbert's, are built for pure combat. But her Sieg is a master of long-range communication, a perfect messenger. Gilbert confirms that their path forward is now clear. With the peace talks failed, war is now inevitable. And this time, she declares, they will be the ones to strike first. Meanwhile, the Eustasian envoy makes their slow, defeated retreat. An attendant reports that Elizabeth will live but needs absolute rest. Izraha offers the exhausted woman a drink, but she refuses. She can only ask what will become of them now. Izraha tells her to ask the nobles who have already abandoned them. The attendant's face falls, her last glimmer of hope extinguished. She puts on a brave face, saying she's just going to pick flowers. But Izraha watches her go, knowing she will never return. Elsewhere, the remaining nobles make their own plans to flee. They too abandon their posts, leaving their master to her fate. Izraha knows their house is finished, a sinking ship with no captain. She wonders how she can possibly protect Elizabeth in this chaos. She decides this is a problem that requires a drink. Fair enough. She tries to numb the inevitable reality of their ruin. Behind closed doors, her master is lost in a fever dream. Elizabeth tosses and turns, trapped in a nightmare of pain and rage. She clutches the sheets, her mind screaming one word, unforgivable. She's haunted by the image of the princess and Dino together. Her eyes burn with hatred as she vows to take back what is hers. And her mind drifts back to a memory of a smiling, innocent boy. Her hand clenches the sheets, her mind screaming one word, unforgivable. In her twisted thoughts, Dino's every emotion belongs only to her, and she vows that anyone who tries to take him will pay the price. Her hatred shatters the image of the princess, a promise of death in her eyes. Meanwhile, in Sandaria, the royal family holds a tense meeting. The first prince, Elric, is stress-eating his way through a basket of bread. His sister, the second Princess Catherine, mocks his meager appetite. He complains that he can't eat after Rafine rejected the peace treaty. He turns to his sister, asking if this was truly the only option. But Rafine, the third princess, confirms this was the best path for their nation. Elric argues they could have negotiated without resorting to more conflict. He then immediately asks for another serving of bread. A man of priorities. Catherine smirks, saying it's more fun to let the genius of war do her work. Rafine gives her sister a sharp, disapproving glare. A deep voice from the head of the table tells Catherine to apologize. The king of Sandaria reminds her that even family must show respect. Catherine is immediately humbled by her father's command. She lowers her head, offering a quiet, reluctant apology. The king asks Rafine what her plan is, knowing she opposed the talks. She explains that without peace, they have a new option, an alliance. Elric can only repeat the word, completely baffled. Rafine lays out her strategy. Unite the eastern nations against the empire. Elric dismisses the idea, certain the other nations are too afraid to act. But Rafine declares they will show them the empire is not invincible. Her hand rests on the table, her resolve as firm as steel. As military advisor, she proposes a counter-invasion of Eustasian territory. They won't just defend, they will prove an alliance is worth the risk. Elric erupts, calling her plan reckless and a diplomatic disaster. Catherine chimes in, stating she can't fund an invasion, only a defense. She calmly balances a knife on her finger, a silent butt hanging in the air. But Catherine cuts in, explaining a simple business principle. She'll fund the invasion, but only if it's done in 1 month. Rafine is taken aback by the impossible deadline. Catherine smiles, saying it's a test of her sister's true abilities. But Rafine's resolve hardens. She will not lose this gamble. Elric can only watch, his face a mask of disbelief. And their father, the king, begins to weep. He laments the endless, brutal cycle of war between nations. He reveals he's been sending letters, trying to reason with the emperor. A truly optimistic strategy. Rafine seems to have been unaware of her father's efforts. Catherine scoffs, calling the letters ridiculously long. She's certain they were burned before they were ever read. But the king has made his choice. The invasion is approved. Rafine bows her head, accepting the heavy burden. The king asks if there is any other business to discuss. Catherine raises her hand, a sly look on her face. She has a proposal for dealing with the rising refugee crime. We cut to the bachelor's officer dormitory, where a new warrior is honing his skills. He unleashes a flurry of powerful strikes and shatters the training post with a single blow. He stands, wiping the sweat from his brow. A young woman appears, asking about his sword practice. This is Elena, the dorm head's granddaughter. The warrior explains his sword is just a tool to defeat his enemies. She offers him a towel, calling him a strange man. He washes himself, the water barely cooling his intensity. Elena can't help but blush at the sight. He tells her he can get his own towel, but she insists. He notes her kindness, saying everyone at the dorm is grateful. She clarifies it's not because she likes him or anything. A likely story. Dino is left confused as she quickly changes the subject. She has a message from the dorm head. His new swords are finally ready. We flash back to the ruins of the peace conference. Gilbert had promised to introduce him to a proper blacksmith. Dino had insisted his old battered blades were good enough, but Gilbert explained that a soldier's weapon is a reflection of his pride. The words had clearly struck a chord with our boy. He was a soldier of Sandaria now, and he needed to look the part. And so Dino agrees to meet the man who will forge his future. He finds a master craftsman who speaks of a sword's true heart. The blacksmith tells him to wait, ready to unveil his masterpiece. Dino can only watch, a mix of awe and apprehension on his face. And there they are, his new instruments of war, twin blades black as night with hilts like a dragon's claw. The steel itself seems to hum with a deadly light. Dino is completely captivated by their beauty. He offers a deep, respectful bow of thanks. But the blacksmith's reaction is not what he expected. He erupts, accusing Dino of treating the blades like mere accessories. This guy has some serious trust issues. He drags Dino outside, declaring it's time for a test. The sun beats down on the training yard. The challenge, a stack of 5 massive logs. The blacksmith declares that if he can cut them, the swords are his. He hands the blades over, his challenge hanging in the air. Dino takes the swords, the weight feeling strangely perfect in his hands. His eyes narrow, his focus absolute. He feels a connection, as if the steel itself has a pulse. He stands before the target, ready to prove his worth. He unleashes a powerful two-handed strike. His entire being is focused on this single, impossible cut. And with a roar, he cleaves through all 5 logs at once. The cut is impossibly clean, a testament to his skill. The blacksmith explains he abandoned finesse for pure power. He says the blades were made heavy to match Dino's raw strength. Dino realizes a properly forged sword feels like an extension of himself. He offers his heartfelt thanks, ready to pay for the masterpiece. But the blacksmith reveals Gilbert's family already covered the cost. Dino is stunned, insisting he can't accept such a gift. He's left speechless by this unexpected act of camaraderie. The blacksmith notes that our boy is clearly not used to kindness. Dino admits he feels unworthy of all this generosity. The old man stops him, ready to impart some wisdom. He tells Dino a sword can protect peace, but it cannot create it. True peace, he says, is forged by the kindness in people's hearts. He reminds Dino of the people who have shown him compassion, and that he should pass that warmth on to someone else. Then he'll no longer feel indebted, but connected. A nice sentiment from a guy who just made him chop a forest. The words strike a deep chord within him, and for the first time he offers a truly genuine smile. The blacksmith suggests he use his saved money to explore the city. Dino realizes he's never actually seen the place he's sworn to protect. He asks the old man if he has any recommendations. The blacksmith gets a very specific, very creepy look in his eye. Dino thanks him, completely oblivious to the man's strange demeanor. He's confused by the term young man. He's only ever been a slave. The words echo as he walks into the heart of the city. And he finds himself on Magenta Street, the city's entertainment district. Oh, this is not going to go well. He realizes he's walked into a completely different kind of battlefield. A woman tells him he shouldn't be moping around in this part of town. She corners him with a very aggressive proposition. She offers him a special service for being so handsome. Dino shoves her away, completely flustered by the unwanted advance. But in the chaos, she's already lifted his wallet. She mocks his naivety, saying he won't last long like this. A masterclass in distraction. Dino realizes with horror that his money is gone. The thief blows him a kiss and makes her escape. She disappears into the crowded, chaotic streets. Dino can only stare, realizing he's just been robbed, and a group of thugs appears, blocking his path. The thief barrels through the slums, causing a commotion. A local shopkeeper yells at her for causing trouble again. She simply tells the old man to shut his mouth. This part of the city is a world away from the palace. She smirks, thinking no one would be foolish enough to follow her here. She opens her prize, but Dino is standing right behind her. She's annoyed, wondering how he managed to keep up. Dino just looks at her with a worried expression. He's clearly out of his element, but determined. He asks for his money back, explaining that it's important. The thief Totori is impressed he managed to track her down, but she tells him a simple chase is no fun. She declares that if he wants it, he'll have to fight for it. And with that, she and her companion take to the rooftops. Her friend leads the way, a blur of motion. Totori lands gracefully, ready for the chase. The two thieves leap across the dilapidated buildings. They move with an agility born from a life on these streets. She looks back, a challenging grin on her face. He tells her stealing is wrong, but she's just flustered by his intensity. She decides it's time to use her secret weapon. A rope is thrown across an impossible gap between buildings. She grabs it, activating her emergency escape plan. A heavy sack acts as a counterweight on the other end. With a laugh, she swings across the chasm. Always be prepared, I guess. She lands gracefully on the opposite roof. She pulls the rope, certain he can't follow her now. Dino simply looks up, calculating the distance. He crouches, his body coiling like a spring. Totori scoffs, thinking there's no way he can make that jump. The ground shatters from the force of his takeoff, and our boy is suddenly airborne, soaring across the gap. Her smug grin is replaced by a look of pure, unadulterated shock. He lands on a balcony just below her perch. She breathes a sigh of relief, thinking he fell short. But his hands grip the edge of the roof with impossible strength. He pulls himself up as if gravity is just a suggestion, and he stands over her, his shadow falling across her face. Totori can only stare, her mind completely broken. He leaps again, continuing the chase across the city skyline. She panics, realizing she's down to her last resort. The chase leads them down to the city's port. They finally reach a dead end in a quiet alley. Totori collapses, completely exhausted from the pursuit. Her companion tells her she's finally reached her limit. Dino calmly advises her to give up this life of crime, but she just smirks, telling him he's the one in danger. And suddenly they are surrounded. A gang of street kids and thugs emerges from the shadows. She tells him he's the one who followed her into this trap. Totori smirks, telling him to hand over the money if he values his life. But Dino refuses, explaining the money is a precious gift. One of the thugs erupts, telling him to know his place. Dino's hand clenches, his resolve hardening. He calmly tells them that he cannot kill them. Totori is completely flustered by this unexpected response. She screams that they are all refugees from Eustasia. The army only protects the rich and the powerful. Their small villages were abandoned to the chaos of war. They were forced to flee, leaving everything behind. She declares that if no one will protect them, they'll survive by any means necessary. Her eyes burn with a desperate, defiant fire. Dino offers a quiet apology, saying he never meant to insult their resolve, but he still can't allow them to become killers. He explains that killing is a job for killers. Totori's bravado shatters in an instant. Because those who kill, he says, have eyes just like his, and his gaze is a window into a world of endless slaughter. The thugs recoil, finally realizing they've picked a fight with a ghost. Totori can only stare, her body frozen in pure terror. The fear is so overwhelming she loses her composure. Tears of pure terror stream down her face. Dino's expression softens, his hand reaching out. He gently takes the knife from her trembling fingers. He tells her that she and her friends are strong. He sees their struggle because he too fought desperately to survive. The old shopkeeper smiles, seeing the connection between them. Dino declares he wants to become a strength they can rely on. He offers his hand, not as an enemy, but as an ally. Totori can only stare, completely disarmed by his compassion.